Thank you to all who dealt with the organization of this important conference and all the audience who has survived until thus. I appreciate it greatly. Just one word about Oded, whom I became acquainted with in my first year in the Institute. I always told him he's the youngest in the Institute because when you look at someone's age, you look at how flexible they are mentally and what their temperament is. He had a temperament, and some of us experienced it. Personally, he didn't lose that until his last day. And secondly, his mental flexibility, that was pretty amazing. Usually, older people, you would think they don't like changes, but he loved changes and hated the routine. Every time there was a way to change, he would endorse it and embrace it immediately. And that is really a wonderful thing to see with such an elderly and experienced person who refers to even his own heritage as a burden. If we can change, then it's hard time to change. And lastly, he was truly a full information a reserve database, and I think he's replaced by AI. I have an application on my phone. If I don't know anything, I ask Perplexity, and it gives me an answer. Before that, I would have called or dead, and I was surprised. The disciplines. How much natural gas did we sell to Egypt in the last year? He would give me an answer. And what is the scope of pipes that reaches Lebanon? I would have an answer. Now tell me, in East Germany, the votes that the AfD got, what was it last elections? I would get an answer. That man was living geopolitics, energy. He knew more than the mice at the basements of the Congress. He was really amazing. He was the first when we spoke about him in one of the largest law firms in the US, and the man who spoke about him just cried. He was a very wealthy man. He was responsible for many things, and he was really moved by Oded. And I think that it was Oded's last article that he had written in the framework of a research project that I had forgotten its name. It had this sophisticated name, what happened with the half glass full. I don't remember the precise name. And he said, imagine there is no bureaucracy, no politics, no constraints. Imagine what could happen with the collaboration with Jordan. And then he wrote 5 pages about that. That intelligent conclusion was that the stability and collaboration and coordination with Jordan in the fields of water, energy, tourism, agriculture is a supreme interest for national security in Israel in the broadest sense of national security. It's a lesson in national security on how to improve, and it's a very important conclusion. Just to sum up, just one word about agreements and diplomacy. The general trend in the Israeli public opposes thinking about agreements as something that's essential for national security. So what we're taught is that every war is supposed to obtain a better security reality and supposed to lead to an agreement, that wars end with an agreement. It appears as if agreements and treaties are perceived as weakness. Who will you sign an agreement with? Could you trust it? What's it worth? But we're all living on agreements from the most personal to the global level. And nowadays, when we discuss a peace agreement with Jordan, which seems so obvious in the present context, when there are those who even deem the coming agreement in the north as something that is unacceptable, I thought it's important to state the obvious. Agreements between states fix military achievements. A military achievement is much weaker than one that is backed by a political agreement. And the more military successes we have, the better. The agreements that we could obtain, the IDF is at present at various arenas, almost at the summit of its military ability. And if we cannot fortify that via agreements, we may miss these achievements. It's important to say, between Israel and Jordan, there are amazing security interests. The general public is not aware of them, neither in Jordan nor in Israel. It generates huge strength at the top and great weakness between people and in reference to people. That's an unstable anomaly. That's something that we should address in order to reinforce the chain throughout its length so that it will be understood at the grassroots level as well. I identified with what Bryant said. There haven't better times. Our arrival has been hidden, but on the street, when you're in the room, we've been received as the best of Jordan's partners. War enhances the challenges versus Jordan from two sources, Iran and Hamas. Iran, if it gains control over Jordan, then that will really reinforce the ring of fire. And indeed, it is difficult because there's hardly any Shiite in nowadays. But when the war began, there were 5% Shia, and that didn't interfere with Soleimani to take over, as he has in Lebanon. So it's much harder in Jordan because those who see the map in Jordan could understand the situation. Now, Hamas and the Palestinian issue, the street admires the Hamas way. The servers are horrible in the streets in Jordan. There's an admiration to the Hamas way, and that is detaining us significantly.
The very fact there is no progress on Palestinian matter definitely empowers the alternative state idea. Many admire Hamas's resistance ways, and many wonder what is the policy of Israel, in fact, in the field, and they see this coming to fruition, the policy that Israel implements. So there are many opportunities still. A great opportunity, in fact, is the change of the climate that creates a horrible scarcity of water and energy. And there are no borders. People are thirsty, and thirsty people are first and foremost unstable, and they will be holding accountable the regime that doesn't provide them with water. And I don't see them charging the border. They first of all be charging the government in Jordan. This is quite an underminer of stability. People do not tolerate a failing regime when they're thirsty. And I think this is a win-win solution for Israel and Jordan when it comes to water and energy. This is a clear-cut Israeli interest. Secondly, Jordan sees ISIS, that is still a thing there, and Hezbollah in Iran as a significant threat. So there is identity of interest when it comes to threats of Israel and Jordan, and it's not just an excuse to continue military cooperation. This is something that matters for both states. And Jordanians actually published it. There is identity of interest in the ways of coping with all the airborne weapons and munition that violate sovereignty of Israel and Jordan as well, drones, and etc. On 14th of October, for example, they were active in order to protect the state of Israel in this sense. and in fact, by the very fact that we're defending their own sovereignty of them. Jordanian territory, which is not the potential, I wouldn't call it the original defense alliance, but it's an identity of interest that exists. So, identity of interest against the sheer crescent axis. We should mention Egypt as well. Someone told me once that Israel is always looking for something new, for something glossy and shiny. You have stable peace agreements with Jordan and Egypt. Well, you go looking for Saudis, and then you go to Gulf countries. Why do you need this younger, shinier thing? Exhaust what you have in your hand already. And the harsh issues connected to national security of Israel, there is no doubt that Egypt and Jordan are vital, crucial interests for Israel, much more critical and vital than anything else, than Gulf countries that do open for us economical opportunities. But Egypt is important versus Gaza Strip, Rafah crossing, and the Philadelphian corridor, and the agreement of the hostage and the hostages deal. I'm sorry I couldn't participate in the whole conference, but I did adopt 4 pointers that were extremely important for me. Peace is made between people, and agreements are made between people, and personal connections are insubstitutable. No any interest can substitute that. It can solve so many problems. And the fruit of peace are under the table, and we don't do enough to market them in the open, talking about diplomacy and messages and our ability to impact differently. It always seems so far-fetched. How can you even do that versus citizens and etc.? And the last but not the least matter, I think it was clearly understood, the stability of Jordan and this type of peace is security interest of Israel. Anything we do is just to make sure to fortify that. We do it not just to because it's a moral thing to do, a globally correct thing to do. We do it because we need it. So let's talk about the land bridge that leads to Haifa port. This infrastructure would have connected between the Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel. We could have generated here a subcontinental bloc of the Middle East that has a status, importance in the world, an emerging world. And if you manage to create this possibility, to create those sub-global agreements that have an importance and influence upon the global energy economy or trade, you become stronger, in fact. Let's hope we learned the lesson from the agreements and the important, the old ones, and on the way to new agreements that maybe will be a harbinger of the new era in the Middle East. Or during the war, we must bear it in mind, not just after looking for those opportunities. So thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you for your attention and patience.